Hi, I'm Les Hughes. I'm senior pastor of Westwood Baptist Church in Alabaster, Alabama, just outside of Birmingham. If I had to do it all over again, I would schedule intentional, periodic times every single year to pull back, to get away from the busyness of ministry, and I would find some place where I could be alone with God and listen to Him. Now that for someone in ministry sounds strange. It just seems like that might come with the territory, but it really doesn't. And even early on in my ministry, I knew what the Gospels said about times that Jesus would get up early in the morning and go off to the mountainside or a quiet place and spend time with the Father. And so I was, I guess, fairly consistent with my devotional life. And, when it came time to prepare for messages and sermon series, I was like a whole lot of y'all, and that is that I just poured myself into the scriptures and I got my tools out. But when I was in God's Word way too often, instead of trying to hear the voice of God, I was preparing a sermon. And like many, if not most people in ministry, there are people that are pulling on you all the time, and you're called to lead them, and you're called to even be a part of some pretty important decision making, and all of that for years just kind of mounted up on me. And now that I look back in retrospect, it just seems like a no-brainer that I would spend periodic times away where I would take a fast from the media, not read newspapers, not watch the news, not have a lot of information pouring in on me, but just listen to the voice of God. So in the next few minutes, I want to just summarize what that experience was like for me, and maybe somebody could be helped by what I went through. I got to the point in my ministry where it just seemed like I was edgy. I was pretty short with others, with my family members, because it just always seemed like I was having to go from one decision to the next. And I didn't want to admit that often, if I would be honest, my answer to some of the questions that people would ask me is, I don't know. Give me time to think. Give me time to really pray through something. It just seems like in leadership, often those decisions have to be made so quickly. And I knew I was in trouble. And I look back on this now, and this seems crazy, but this really did happen. I knew that I was in trouble when I walked into our break room at our ministry center at the church, and we have got a little coffee machine there, and I love coffee. And I walked in there, and there are three settings on that coffee machine, depending on how strong you want the coffee and how big a cup you want. And I stood there and I looked at those settings, and I honestly, and this sounds so crazy now, but I honestly couldn't decide which one that I wanted to push. And just for a moment there, I thought, this is crazy. Something's got to give. And then God allowed a couple of things to happen in my life that mean the world to me now. One was I read a book by Wayne Cordero called Leading on Empty. Leading on Empty. What a great title, huh? And through that book, Wayne is very transparent about sharing his own pilgrimage and his own experience where he was having some of those same thoughts. And it was like Wayne had been listening into my phone conversations, or reading my journal or something like that. And he talked in there about the importance of spending time unplugged from the busyness of what goes on with church life, as much as we may love it. And then secondly, I talked with Bruce Miller, and Bruce was talking to our group of pastors during that meeting about the rhythm, having rhythm to your life, and how God made us to be, and even made the world, made creation to have a certain rhythm to it. And in that talk, Bruce talked about the importance of being away and listening to God. And so I just decided I would do it, and I put it on the calendar the same way that I would do a conference or a vacation. And a kind couple in our church family allowed me to go and spend a week down at their beach home. And I went down there without a real agenda except to listen to God. And I'm gonna tell you, it was hard. It was so tough. But because I like to stay busy, probably just like you do. But there's a story that I was reading a while back in the book of Exodus about Pharaoh and how Moses was coming to him, And long story short, you certainly know this story. When Pharaoh decided that he would take away the straw from the Israelites, so that they would have to collect the straw and make the bricks as well, and make it with having to collect the straw instead of having that straw given to them. What he said was that he wanted to keep them busy so they couldn't listen to the voice of lies. Now, the voice of lies he was referring to was the voice of God, especially through Moses, but he kept them busy so they couldn't hear God's voice. And that was a great challenge to me. So I would say, do what you can to schedule those times away just to listen to God. Not to talk to God. There's a time and place for that as well. But to listen to God. And then have a journal with you so that when he speaks to you, whatever it is that he's telling you at that time, you write it down, and have sections that have to do with what he says to you about your family, what he says to you about ministry, about your church, or wherever it is that he has you planted, about life in general, about his relationship with you. I can't stress enough how valuable that time away has been to me in my ministry, as a husband, as a dad, as a follower of Jesus Christ. So if I had it to do all over again, that's what I'd do.